All right, there we go. Forge gang. I am still a hard man. Let's go. Forge gang. I'm still a hard man. Let's go. Alright, so I just finished watching the last episode of Daima in English subtitles. There isn't a dub yet. At least for episode number 20, the dub hasn't yet been released. So, the series is over with, and I can give you my conclusory thoughts. I kind of wished that I had started streaming when Super was still on the air, which sadly wasn't the case. That would have been really awesome if I had been covering like episode to episode, week to week of Dragon Ball Super. Not the best. Not the best show overall, but it was better than this. Yeah. I think that going into Daima, I had too many high expectations of this series. It was only going to be just 20 episodes, which is really short for a Dragon Ball themed television series. Syndicated television series to begin with. So, it was only 20 episodes. I'm going to go into spoilers, by the way, so if you don't want to hear spoilers about Daima, you're not missing out on anything great. It's just that this was the last Dragon Ball related thing that Akira Toriyama did. Now, there is rumors that a new Dragon Ball Super movie is going to be coming out soon. And Akira Toriyama has worked on the script for that movie. So I guess technically that would be the last thing that Akira Toriyama worked on. But you're not going to be seeing that for like 3 years. It'll be, 2026, 2027 when it comes out. Like, that movie's not coming out this year. So anyways, let's go into Daima. Is Daima really just, GT 2.0? The answer is yes. It very much is. I'm not trans, Ace of Jesters, but believe whatever you want. Anyways, Daima was not all that great. The fights were way too short. So, I've got some assholes that I have interacted with that say they're Dragon Ball Z fans, and they're not Dragon Ball fans. They think that only Z is what matters. Dragon Ball Z is not the only thing that matters, okay? Half the manga takes place before Raditz even shows up. Don't forget that. Anyways, if you have been following Dragon Ball Daima, and if you have not, you haven't missed much. It's just a big fan service. The fights are barely more than 1 episode long, if even that. I wasn't too much taken in, so the premise of the story with Dragon Ball Daima is that it happens right after the Majin Buu arc. It happens before Battle of Gods, which is weird because Supreme Kai and Kibito are separate. They're still fused in Battle of Gods and GT, but it's whatever. Anyway, it happens also before Heya, Goku, and his friends return as well. So anyways, yeah, Daima's not that great. You're not really missing out on a lot. You weren't missing out if you haven't been watching it. But anyways, the premise of the show introduces the demon world. Demon King Dabra, who was a minion of Bobbity in the Boo arc, was the last king. He was turned into candy and eaten up by Majin Buu, and that's how he died. And Demon King Dabra was basically in heaven or whatever by Yenma Dao. Anyways, Daima begins with Goku and Vegeta fighting like they always do. They always fight. They always fucking fight because that's what Saiyans do. Saiyans are supposed to fight and stuff. And the first episode, all it is just a retelling of the entire Boo arc. And it's rather boring. It's only at the end of episode 1 where the Namekian elder Neva brings the Dragon Balls to Dende's lookout and they use them to wish everybody to be turned into kids. But Trunks and Goten are turned into toddlers or something, I don't know. Roshi is the only guy that actually really seems to care that much about being turned back into being young again. So right at the get-go, it is a retelling, a fan fiction retelling of GT. That much is true. There's some differences. So Glorio comes to the lookout. He comes to the lookout. Goku gets the power pole. Roshi is going out on a date or something. They don't really tell us much, but Goku gets the Naibo. If you don't know what the Naibo is, you're not a real Dragon Ball fan. So they go to the demon world. Vegeta, Bulma, Piccolo, and Kibito Kai stay on the lookout with Mr. Popo. They go to the third demon world, and when they get there, their spaceship is stolen. The spaceship or whatever they were using is stolen. It gets stolen, and there's some talk about the Tertian Onculus or whatever from episode 2. I'll get into what that is later. So they get into like some scuffles with thieves. They get their spaceship hijacked and stolen from them. And they eventually go to the shop and they get like these revive bugs and stuff. It's kind of weird. They get revival bugs or revive bugs or something. Goku and Glorio, they have a short fight. Nothing much happens. They go to King Kadan's castle, and Goku turns into a Super Saiyan and whoops everyone. So basically, they get this weird fat alien dude to go to Earth and get Vegeta, the others, bring them to the third demon world, and it just builds up. It's mainly comedy. There's some fights with the Gender Army, the Demon Realm Gender Army or something. So Goku fights the first Tamagami that has the 1-star Dragon Ball of the Demon World. Not very much in terms of a fight that's really that impressive. Goku just one-aces him with his hammer. Forge Warhammer! Shout out! Let's go! So Goku defeats the first Tamagami. Vegeta and the others get their spaceship stolen when they arrive in the demon world or whatever. And so Goku fights the first Tamagami. There isn't really much to see from this fight. They get the Dragon Ball. Then, in the next episode, the Dragon Ball is stolen. No worries, Goku gets it back. Then they have to go back and they have to get Vegeta and the others because the Gender Army ship they stole is destroyed or damaged and it can't be fixed. So they get Vegeta and the others and they go to the second demon world, which is like Namek. The third demon world is full of this gas and it's kind of like the Grand Canyon. And it's just basically a bunch of small towns and just really weak and awkward, dumb Majin or whatever. Araizu, she goes to this witch. And this witch was the one that apparently created Majin Buu. So all that talk about how Majin Buu is this ancient, anachronistic, antediluvian beast from the dawn of the universe that Toriyama always talked about, or that he was created by Bibbidi, that's thrown out the window. That is completely thrown out the window, and now there is a witch. Araizu is a glend. I'll get to that in a bit. We got witches in Dragon Ball Daima. It was originally going to be called Dragon Ball Magic, but it was changed to Daima for some reason. So anyways, they go to the second demon world. The witch Araizu and her friend create a Majin. It is a very skinny, shrimpy, green version of Kid Buu called Majin Ku. And he goes and fights the first Tamagami at the palace, or the palace grounds, and loses. So they go back and they create Majin Du, who is a fat, bloated version of Kid Buu. He kind of looks a bit like Fat Buu. He looks a bit like Kid Buu. He also looks a bit like Cell. They kind of have a mixture of Cell and Majin Buu in his different forms. So Majin Du goes back and he eats a bunch of chocolate and fights the first Tamagami and beats him. Goku and the others are in the second demon world. The Supreme Kai tells them that the gods of the universe were actually glens. They're actually called glens, and they grew on trees on this planet in the second demon world that looks like Namek. It's a giant ocean with a bunch of planets in the sky, and there's krakens, giant krakens that eat people in ships if they get too low or something. So they were selected by the Supreme Demon King to be the gods of the other universes. Majin Rimus created all the universes, the multiverse and the universe, and the glens were selected to be the Supreme Kais. Then they go to the original Namek in the second demon world, where the Namekians came from originally, and they run into Neva, who is the guy that gathered the Dragon Balls for Goma to make the wish in episode 1. They find out about the origins of the Namekians. They're from Daima, they're from the demon world, and they're from that planet Namek. And they were basically used as slaves by the Demon Kings and other Majins because of their unique powers. They talk about how the Namekian Dragon Balls were made as a test of strength, courage, honor, and dignity, and that only the purest of Namekians could use the Dragon Balls. But because of the enslavement and tyranny of the Demon Kings, the Nameks fled. They fled to Old Namek in Universe 7, which is the Namek that Frieza and the Frieza Force attack and all of that in Z, in the Frieza arc. And so we learn about the origins of the glens and Nameks. Then they go and fight the second Tamagami. Vegeta powers up to Super Saiyan 2, and Vegeta fights largely. He's almost eaten by a Kraken. Then Vegeta does something that is totally fan-servicey. He turns into Super Saiyan 3. Yes, Kid Vegeta becomes Super Saiyan 3. It turns out that Vegeta unlocked that ability all along. It was totally not just retconned in there for fan service. And he defeats the second Tamagami, so they get 2 Namekian-sized Demon World Dragon Balls. Majin Du defeats the first Tamagami. Oh yeah, there's also these ridiculous tests that they have to do after they defeat the Tamagamis in battle. Goku has to do like this cup thing where they put one thing in a cup and they spin it around everywhere. The second Tamagami has them talk about like the Wheel of Fortune test and stuff, and it turns out that it's a snake or something that's a snake. It's kind of like a riddle. The first Tamagami does like this extremely strong mathematical quiz thing that Majin Ku actually beats. So that's the Tamagami fights. The Tamagami fights are a total letdown. Absolute waste of time, absolute waste of patience. Anyways, the Tamagamis are out. They end up stranded on a planet called Planet Lengthened. And it's full of giant rats and hamsters and stuff. And Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, the Z Fighters are fighting the different giant Lingans or whatever. It's a planet full of giants, and they fight it, and they just barely escape. And then they go back to the giant warp fish that they use to go between the demon worlds. At the same time, Goma finds out that Goku and the others are getting the Dragon Balls, and they're coming to the first demon world. And Araizu wants to be the supreme demon queen, or the supreme queen of the demon world, and succeed Goma. Goma's the current king of the demon world, and he's looking for the Tertian Onculus. He was going to use the second wish of the Earth Dragon Balls to get it, but Shenron wouldn't let him have it. But anyways, I digress. So Neva put up a barrier between the three demon worlds that nobody can go through, and they shut down Warp Sama so they can't go to the first demon world. So Neva casts a magic spell and undoes the barriers, and they go to the first demon world, and they immediately start fighting the Gender army. King Kaiden and his minions arrive, and they help Goku and the others fight the Gender army. Goma is concerned about it because they kidnapped Dende. Dende is a baby, and they want to raise him up so they can make more Dragon Balls and use it for his tyrannical rule and stuff. So Goku and the Z Fighters are fighting tanks. They're fighting the Gender army. They fight like these floating ships or floating vehicles that the Gender army use to transport themselves. And they're fighting a bunch of soldiers with electric staffs and tanks that fire energy blasts or something. And it's really weird because Goku and Vegeta have to turn Super Saiyan to fight the Gender army tanks, which makes absolutely no sense. Also, they put these things around the necks of the third demon realm Majins, and Pansy is freed by the Supreme Kaioshin from that kind of enslaved neck thing around her. They free her, and then some background on the Tertian Onculus is given. It turns out that the Tertian Onculus is the third eye. It is a magical third eye that the Demon Kings had to extend their life and power. It unleashes massive forces of magic into the world, and King Dabra, the minion of Babidi, overthrew the previous Demon King and got the Tertian Third Eye Onculus to the third demon world, and for some reason it ended up on the belt of one of the guys that helped Goku and the others get to the demon realm. And it turns out that third eye is still on the guy's belt. So they hire a hooker or a prostitute to trick him into giving them the belt. But it turns out all he wants is the hat, so the prostitute gives him her hat, and she gets the belt and takes it to Goma, and it's pretty ridiculous. So they hire the Special Elite Force, basically the Demon World version of the Ginyu Zotaiku, the Ginyu Force, and they can use magic, but guess what? They are no match. They are absolutely no match for Goku and the Z Fighters, and so they're just very easily arrested and chained up and beaten. And then Degasu, the Supreme Kaioshin, who is the second in command under King Goma, is captured and basically tied up and put into their spaceship or whatever, their transport vehicle that they use to get through the demon worlds. And then they go and confront Goma, but Goma puts on the third eye and transforms into basically his version of Jiren. He becomes Super Goma. So a great fight results of this. A giant stadium with rocks and stuff is built. It's kind of like the Cell game stadium. and Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Tamagami 1, Majin Buu, Majin Ku, Glorio, and all of them start fighting Super Goma, and it's pretty wasteful and stuff. Like, they're all fighting at Super Saiyan 3 or whatever. Vegeta can turn into Super Saiyan 3 in Daima. And then Neva powers up Tamagami 1. It doesn't really do much. Then Neva, the Namekian, powers up into Goku's genes and turns him into Super Saiyan 4. So now there is a Super Saiyan 4 Red Tail Kid Goku that is fighting Goma, and the transformation isn't necessarily a complete waste, but it isn't the best thing, it isn't the best form, and they're all fighting, but Iraizu gets the 3 Dragon Balls, and they summon a red version of Porunga. This is the Demon World Porunga, and Iraizu wants to wish to become the new Supreme Demon Queen, but instead Glorio uses the wish to turn Goku, Vegeta, and everyone back into adults. Goku loses the Super Saiyan 4 form, by the way, but they're turned back into adults. Then Vegeta powers up, and he goes and fights Goma by himself. Vegeta fights one-on-one with Super Goma. The third eye keeps healing Goma, and it keeps making him stronger and bigger and more muscular. Vegeta powers up to Super Saiyan 3, has an adult. He fights pretty well, and then Bulma makes a joke or something and gets Vegeta to stop fighting. Goku then goes in and fights. Goku shows his different forms. Then he turns into Super Saiyan 4 again on his own, has an adult, and they start fighting, and it's a lot like the baby Super Saiyan 4 Goku fight in GT. There's even the Red Kamehameha, or the Super Saiyan 4 10 times Kamehameha. And it's a pretty good fight, I guess. They're going through a bunch of rocks and stuff. Goma uses his own giant magic staff that fires a bunch of blasts, or like black hole-looking blasts with purple energy, black hole-looking blasts with purple aura around them. He crashes a bunch of rocks. He sends Goku through the floating stadium or whatever that they're on. Goku fires the 10 times Kamehameha, and it actually breaks right through Goma's torso, and it goes through the sky all the way to the second demon world and into the third demon world, and it breaks a giant hole throughout the Daima realm. And water from the second demon realm is pouring into the first. However, Goma simply heals and recovers back to normal. But as Super Goma is healing, it turns out that because Iraizu has her magic spell book, they find out with the help of Majin Ku that they need to hit Goma on the back of the head 3 times. Piccolo does it twice when Goma's not noticing, and then Goma creates this giant green energy shield, and nobody can really step in and fight him or whatever. Then Majin Ku, with the magic spell book, destroys the barrier and hits Goma in the back of the head one more time. The third eye falls out. Goma returns to normal. The fight is over. Glorio steps on and destroys the Tertian Onculus, and they trap Goma and Degasu in this magic lamp. So the witch that created Majin Buu, Ku, and Du seal Goma and Degasu in a bottle for 99 years as punishment for their wicked reign and for kidnapping Dende or something like that. And Majin Ku becomes the new Supreme Demon King of the Demon World. And basically, he appoints several ministers and stuff. Ku wants to appoint Goku as a minister, but Goku just wants to go home because he wants to get something to eat. It's a pretty big letdown. So anyways, they get a new ship and they go to King Kaiden's castle. Everybody says goodbye to each other, and then that's it. The credits run. So Goma and Degasu are beaten. Basically, it just feels like the only reason they did this was to bring Super Saiyan 4 back into the fold. And it does have a lot of resemblances to the Buu arc of Z and to GT. So regardless, Daima ends with Goku and the others going to the shop and getting revived bugs or something. And that is Daima. That is the 20 episodes of Daima. It is an absolute, I wouldn't say it's a complete letdown, but it just feels like a fan service. They did tease Fusion back in episode 4, but there was no Fusion. And then there was rumors and stuff of them using Super Saiyan 4, which Goku did. And this is weird, but Goku said that he was training to become Super Saiyan 4 after the Majin Buu fight, which is really weird. And then Vegeta says that his form is not like Goku's Super Saiyan 3, but it is in fact Ultra Vegeta Form 1, which is a lot like the Super Baby Vegeta Strongest Form 2 form in GT. So it really is just basically Toriyama's version of Dragon Ball GT. It just takes place in the demon world instead of the grand tour around the galaxy. And instead of Baby, they have King Goma. And instead of Dr. Mew, they have Degasu. And that was really it. I mean, it was okay, I guess. The world building and the storytelling was interesting. I wasn't really taken into the fights. The fighting was not that great. So that's Dragon Ball Daima. Not the greatest, really, but the thing that I really don't like about it is that this was the last work that Akira Toriyama did. The last work Akira Toriyama ever worked on before he died. Now, originally, Akira Toriyama was not involved, but they brought him on and he was involved. He was a lot more involved in this than he was ever in GT. And it basically is just Dragon Ball GT reduxed, or redacted. Except the storytelling is even worse. The world building and the fights are even worse. And they just bring back a form that Toriyama didn't even invent or create in the manga. So that's Toriyama's legacy. That is the last, other than Sandland, that is the last thing that Akira Toriyama worked on before he passed away. And it's really kind of sad in a way. It's really kind of sad because that is the last thing that Akira Toriyama talked about or did. And it's really something. It's unfortunate, I think. It is rather unfortunate because Toriyama never worked on GT. And the last Dragon Ball thing that he did was Superhero, the 2022 movie Dragon Ball Super Superhero, which is basically a new version of the Cell arc, and this. And then also the Sandland movie from 2023. And, I mean, like, I just think that this is a terrible way to, a terrible way to end a person's legacy. So that is definitely the closing of the Akira Toriyama era of Dragon Ball. And now we have Toyotaro. Toyotaro, the guy that did Dragon Ball AF in the 2000s. He wrote a fan manga of his version of Dragon Ball AF. Then he did Super Dragon Ball Heroes Victory Mission. He worked on that. Then he did like the manga of Resurrection F, which ends when Goku turns Super Saiyan Blue, and he doesn't even show the Golden Frieza form. Then he did the horrible knockoff of the Dragon Ball Super manga. And it's like, this is how you're going to end the age of Toriyama? Like, Toriyama created one of the most interesting and compelling old-style animes and mangas ever. He didn't even work on GT, and then the last Dragon Ball-related legacy that he does is this GT 2.0 knockoff wannabe. It is really sad. It is kind of sad. Not the worst, but really just far from the best. You can pass on Daima. Like, Daima is supposed to take place right after the Buu arc and before Battle of Gods and Heia, Son Goku, and his friends return. And, I mean, you could just pass on it. If you're a fan of GT, you could give it a watch, but otherwise, you could just pass on it. Like, there is absolutely no mention by any of them in Super or in any kind of later stuff of them ever going to the demon world. You know, you have Goku attaining Super Saiyan 4, which he'll never use that form again. He never uses it in Battle of Gods because he goes straight to Super Saiyan God to fight Beerus. Vegeta never uses Super Saiyan 3 ever again in Super, and it's like, it's just fan service. Like, it's just fan servicey as heck. Anyways, I'm done with my rant. I will go ahead and look at chat. Forge Gang! I am still a hard man! Alright, so we have Rick Perry saying, Forge hard! The Ace of Jesters says, I don't, so I'll little sisters. What are you talking about? TTYL sisters. What are you going on about? Let's see here. Ace of Jesters says, solidarity in our trans nature. Rick Perry says, hi, Jesse. FNAF says, yo, what's up, FNAF? What are you doing? FNAF says, ONG, bro. Goku or something like that. Zaza says, forgive me, Lord, maybe he is confusing me with another person. What? Are you confused about something I said or what, dude? Ivan Ostapenko says, Forge Gang! Evangelina Tovar says, hi. Hello there, Evangelina. What's up? Nathaniel Mendez says, I can't wait for all the analysis between Forge and Cable. Calm Sky says, Forge Gang! Alright, so if that's the chat, I mean, I knew that this was not going to be the best review, obviously, but yeah. So, any thoughts about the rather exhausted and just worn out franchise that's like 40 years old? Like, Dragon Ball is about as old as Star Wars, and it just seems to have really ran its course and is equally has worn out. It seems that just as Lucasfilm basically burned its bridges with all of its fans and went completely woke and broke with the Star Wars series by creating really terrible bad movies that nobody wants to watch, it seems that just as Lucasfilm basically has ruined Star Wars for the last 10, 11 years, Toei Animation has done the same with its own franchises like Dragon Ball and Pokemon and other shonen anime, and has just burned its bridges with its fandom, and is just basically creating Mandalorian side series. Is this really the best that you can really do, Toei and Shueisha and Bird Studio? Is this the best you can do at the close of the Toriyama era and the start of the knockoff Toyotaro wannabe era? Is make these Mandalorian-like side anime shorts? So Dragon Ball Daima is just basically like this Mandalorian knockoff thing. It's a complete repetition of the Mandalorian, and I would say that you're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future. You're going to be seeing not really new or really exciting or eventful series that are actually groundbreaking, but just this Mandalorian-like side questing, like side series, world building away from the main cast Mandalorian stuff. And that's what Daima feels to me. It just feels like a Mandalorian repetition, GT 2.0. They could have done so much better. They could have done a lot better with this. But instead, they chose to make this Mandalorian knockoff thing. Do you have to copy everything that goes on in Star Wars? I know that Toriyama was a fan of Star Wars, and I know that it seems like Toei copies everything that Lucasfilm and Disney does because they want to be like Ghibli Studio and Disney. But you made an entire Dragon Ball version of The Mandalorian. Are you for real? Are you for real, dude? Oh my goodness, man. Alright, so, yeah. You can pass on it. I actually was not going to watch Daima, but then Akira Toriyama passed away. I realized that this would be the last thing that he would ever work on. So I figured, this is the last show that Akira Toriyama worked on before he died. I figured it might be good. No, it's just a second GT. So, once again, they're playing on fan service. They're doing everything the fans want now. First, they ignore what the fans want for decades. Now they're just going to give everything they think the fans want. Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, Super Saiyan 4 Goku with a twist or whatever. And, oh, come on, man. And Gohan wasn't even used. Gohan at least made a comeback in Superhero. They didn't even use Gohan in this. What are you guys thinking? So, yeah. Anyways, if you're interested in the Dragon Ball version of The Mandalorian, then you can watch Dragon Ball Daima. I have no idea when the dub is coming out. Otherwise, you can give it a pass. It's just GT 2.0 with more fan service than you could ever want, really. For real, dude. And what's so ridiculous, what is utterly ridiculous about this is that none of this even relates to the super continuity. Goku will never turn into Super Saiyan 4 in Super. Vegeta will never turn into Super Saiyan 3 in Super. No mention of this entire thing other than the world-building aspect is ever mentioned. They're not talking about Beerus or Whis. They're not talking about, Zeno. And what in the world are the Majin Rimuses? What is that all about? Anyways, I think that this just left more confusion than ever, and it's just going to divide the fans even more. So, yeah, this is basically Dragon Ball Mandalorian. Anyways, I am your host, Imperator of Forge. Thank y'all for watching. Have a good one.